Okay, let's do this. Well, hello there, welcome back. Today I wanted to have another chat with you. I've been meaning to talk about this issue for a while, but I was having a hard time to come up with the right words to do it because I really want the discussion to be respectful and productive, and I really want to do it justice and to do it with all the nuance it requires. And I think now I have all my ideas in place and I'm ready to do this, but I am a bit scared. So before we go in, I would just like to remind you that one, I'm not a native English speaker and I am self-taught, in English. And so my grammar is not always the best. Sometimes I get words wrong. Sometimes I make mistakes and use words that I think mean something because in Portuguese they would mean that thing, but they actually mean another. So, every now and then my choice of words may not be the best. So I would like you to please be patient with me and, kind if I misuse a word. Yeah. And the other thing I like to ask is for everyone to be very respectful in the comments down below. My intentions with this video are not to gatekeep or to invalidate anyone's identity and anyone's struggles, so if I see anyone doing that, your comment is going to get deleted. Okay. Today I wanted to have a conversation about authors in the diaspora. It's actually about a lot more than that, but these were the best words that I could find to kind of summarize this whole thing, so this is what I'm going with. I first started wanting to have this discussion a month or so ago when I came upon Lo's thread on Twitter about the book Woven in Moonlight by Isabelle Bonnies. I'm not going to go too in depth into what the plot of the book is because it's not really that relevant for this discussion, honestly, but the book follows this girl called Jimena, and she is the decoy of this princess in this fantasy land. And while she is posing as the princess, she is sent off to marry this tyrant king. Hearing about the story in those terms makes it seem quite harmless, and it would have been if it weren't for the fact that the book is filled with anti-indigenous and colonialist undertones. In the book you basically have two groups of people. You have the group that is based on the mestizos and the whites of Bolivia, and you have the group that is based on the indigenous peoples of Bolivia. And the villains of the story are the indigenous people. And not only that, but the evil king character, who Isabelle Bonnies went out of her fucking way to confirm was inspired by former Bolivian president Evo Morales, who happens to be an indigenous man who was overthrown by a literal coup. That character is described in the book as not bothering with growing food and things that could be of use to the people, and instead growing drugs that he trades with other countries. And the drugs in question are coca, which, newsflash, is not actually a drug, it's a plant. It serves as a stimulant and, was used as medicine by the indigenous peoples of Bolivia. I mean, yes, cocaine is made from coca, but coca in and of itself is not cocaine, and it's not a drug, it's literally a plant. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the same character is described as smelling bad and being a brute who likes to kill and rape people. And the indigenous coded characters also do human sacrifices for the goddess Pachamama. Now, in case you don't know this, Pachamama is a real goddess, and she is arguably one of the most important ones for, the indigenous peoples of the Andes. And she is basically Mother Earth. And this book has the nerve of describing Pachamama, Mother Earth, as a bloodthirsty goddess. I'm gonna link Lo's review of the book where she goes a lot more in depth on this, and I highly recommend you check it out. But to sum it up, this type of anti-indigenous sentiment echoes throughout the entire book. And that in and of itself is bad enough, but it gets even worse when you know that Bolivia has a huge ethnic conflict. I mean, just last November, supporters of Evo Morales were peacefully protesting when military police and the military opened fire on the crowd. Not rubber bullets, actual bullets. These indigenous peoples, who Isabelle Bonnies used as a foundation for the villains of her story, are still alive today, are still being persecuted today, and are still fighting for their own survival. And even though the main character Jimena eventually realizes that, hey, indigenous people are human beings too, who would have thought? She only does so after they did all the heavy lifting and emotional labor of educating her. And to make matters worse, the book also has this weird colonialist message of there were flaws on both sides, which is obviously a false equivalency, because one side is the colonizer and the other is the colonized. Okay, why am I talking about this? Because this book is sold as a non-voices fantasy inspired in Bolivian history and politics. Isabel Ibáñez is the daughter of Bolivian immigrants, and apparently that's enough to call her a non-voices author when writing about her country of heritage, even though she did a disgusting, piss-poor, poorly researched job at it. If it was even researched at all, because it honestly doesn't seem like it was. I'm gonna quote Lo here for a second, because she summarized this whole thing perfectly. Being Latino, Latinx, Latina in the context of the United States gives you a specific look on specific struggles of ethnic differentiation that exist within the context of the United States. Your experiences as someone in the diaspora are inherently different than those of the people living in your country of heritage. Now, that is not to say that your experiences are less valid or that you're not X enough. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the point is, the experiences are different because the context is different. Being Brazilian in the US and being Brazilian in Brazil, for example, are two completely different experiences. And if a Brazilian American is gonna write a book that takes place in Brazil or is inspired by Brazil, they have the obligation to do due diligence and to put in the proper amount of research, because that is not their experience. Okay? It's as simple as that. A week or so ago, someone made a thread on this topic on Twitter that said something along the lines of, we need to talk about how diasporic authors often misrepresent and romanticize and fetishize their countries of heritage while still getting praise for writing on voices stories. And I read that and I thought to myself, yes, that is a very important conversation, and it's a conversation that we need to have. And I didn't really think anyone would misinterpret it, you know, I didn't think people would take it the wrong way, but of course they did, because this is Twitter, and Twitter is where Nuance goes to die. I'm sorry, but Twitter is just not the right place to have any meaningful discussions with Nuance. It just isn't, you know. There's the whole thing with the characters limit per tweet, and the fact that you don't really know the tone the person is using. And you know, there's also the fact that a lot of people just refuse to use the basic reading comprehension skills. So on the one side, you had people saying that authors in the diaspora could not write about the countries of heritage at all because the culture was not theirs, which is just ludicrous and not true at all. And on the other side, you had people saying that the original tweet was gatekeeping, and that it was implying that they weren't X enough or that they couldn't write about the countries of heritage. And I was just watching this whole thing go down like, that's not what the tweet said at all. Once again, it's not that you can't write about your country of heritage. It's that you have to do due diligence. And that means doing the work, putting in research, and not misrepresenting, romanticizing, fetishizing, or villainizing the country or aspects of it, or the life in it, or the culture in it. Oh, but this is singling out diasporic authors, it's spinning on them all the harmful representation or misrepresentation. No, it isn't, because we are not talking about all misrepresentation, all harmful representation. We are talking about a kind that goes unchecked and that is specific to diasporic authors. Here's an example. We have author A and author B. Author A is American and author B is Bolivian American. Now let's say the two of them wrote a book that misrepresented Bolivia. While author A's book might still be successful, especially if author A is white, because this is the shit world we live in, author B's book will not only be successful, but it will also not be seen as misrepresentation at all, because they are sold as a non-voices author and people just take that at face value. You see what I'm talking about? You understand the issue now? Let's go back to Roving in Moonlight for a second, just to illustrate the point further, okay? The book currently has a 3.97 stars average on Goodreads, with reviews saying things like, on voices Bolivian fantasy with so much rich culture and so much love for details. and set in a made-up land inspired by Bolivian history and politics. And I came for the gorgeous cover but stayed for the Latin American representation, and the cultural representation is refreshing, and it's currently on Time's list of the 100 best fantasy books of all time. I don't even know what to say to that, honestly. Diasporic authors absolutely can write about their countries of heritage and do a superb job with it, okay? For example, I personally haven't read The Poppy War yet, but I've heard R.F. Kuang does an amazing job with it, and that you can really see the amount of research he did on the subject matter, and that the book has a lot of nuance to it. Also, the need for authors to do due diligence goes both ways. For example, I am Brazilian. I never left Brazil. I never lived abroad, I never even traveled abroad. If I was to write a book from the perspective of a Brazilian immigrant in the United States, for example, I would have to either, one, live as one, or two, research it thoroughly and talk to people who live that experience. If I was to write about a Brazilian American, the child of Brazilian immigrants, even more research would be required to do it justice. So the need for common sense and due diligence goes both ways, okay? I just want to make that abundantly clear. With all that being said, when this discussion made the rounds on Twitter, I saw a lot of people taking this as an opportunity to invalidate diasporic identities and experiences, and I just want to reiterate that I do not stand by that. Again, even though our experiences are different, both of them are valid, and one is not less than the other. They are just different. I know some Brazilian Americans, children of Brazilian immigrants, who know a lot more about our culture than some people that I know, for example, who were born and raised in Brazil and still live in Brazil. But at the same time, these people here who try to distance themselves from our culture for whatever reason, there are many complex reasons for why that might happen. These people know what it is like to be born and raised here and to live here in a way that those children in the diaspora do not. Both experiences are valid, both experiences exist, and not one of them is more important or better or superior to the other. They are just completely different experiences because the contexts they are inserted in are completely different. And that is fine. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. It's not gatekeeping to acknowledge that. This is just an extremely complex issue, and I honestly can't do it justice, okay? But I guess it all comes down to, I just wish everyone really had common sense and did due diligence and put in the work and the amount of research required to write these situations with all the nuance they require. Finally, I would like to read you a thread on Twitter by Adiba Jagida, who is the author of The Henna Wars and a diasporic author herself. And it explains this whole thing beautifully, and I'm also going to leave it linked in the description down below so you can read it for yourself. Writing as someone in the diaspora is complex, as is writing as someone not in the diaspora. We all have vastly different experiences, but there is a discussion to be had about privilege, I think. A lot of us who are in the West have privilege that people in the homeland don't. Part of that is the ability to have our voices heard, to have our narratives published. Yes, publishing privileges us and our voices and our point of view, even a point of view of our homeland. Whether we feel like our voice is enough or we feel like we belong while we navigate our feelings about being in the diaspora, we still have that privilege. And all of that is valid, none of it should be negated. Does this privilege mean we can't write about our homeland or our culture? Absolutely not. But it means that it's up to us to do due diligence to ensure that people in our home countries are being represented accurately and respectfully. And we need to ensure we're not writing about the place we left behind, because that place does not exist anymore. This is what I see diaspora writers doing a lot of the time, and this is feeding into harmful and dangerous stereotypes. I left Bangladesh when I was just 10 years old, but I have had the immense privilege of going back there often. Bangladesh is not the same as it was when I left. Hell, it's probably not the same now as it was the last time I was there 2 years ago. It would be disingenuous of me to write about the Bangladesh of my childhood and pretend it was an accurate portrayal of it. And this is one of the places where diaspora writers need to do due diligence, among others. And I just want to reiterate privilege one more time. I have privilege as a diaspora writer in the West. My voice is valued more and given more space in Western publishing. More books are published in the North American publishing industry by writers in the diaspora than not. So make sure you examine that privilege, what it means, and what responsibilities it comes with. That's it. Couldn't have said it better myself. TLDR. Many times diasporic authors romanticize aspects of the countries of heritage and villainize others, or speak of the countries of heritage in a way that just doesn't match reality and can be downright offensive and harmful. And those narratives are still hailed and praised as own voices and therefore true. That's not always the case. I mean, it might not even be the majority, but it does happen, and it happens a lot. Acknowledging that is not gatekeeping. However, your experience as someone in the diaspora is valid. Those two experiences are different, and both are valid, and neither is superior to the other. You are X enough. But when writing about an experience that is not your own, do diligence. Oof, okay, I did it. It's fine. I spent so much time filming this video that it's dark already. That's how scared I was of saying anything wrong. I'm a little scared of posting this, and I'm also scared I didn't choose the proper words. The non-native English speaker struggle, okay. I really wanted to have this discussion, and I really wanted to bring it here because I feel like the space is more suited for it. You know, I feel like it's easier to address all the nuances here. And I'm also very interested in hearing your thoughts about it. You know, I really want to know what you think on this entire subject, and even if you disagree with me, I would love to know why, and I would love to understand your point of view as well. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this entire thing. Also, please keep it respectful and don't invalidate anyone's identities or experiences just because they're different from your own. If that happens, if I see any of that going down in the comment section, I will delete your comment. Simple as that. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something from it. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, I'll see you around.